Somewhere in this building right now, it's Tuesday morning. A 32-year-old woman is making coffee. The smell of it drifts into the hallway, mixing with someone else's breakfast 2 doors down. She doesn't need to go outside for milk. The supermarket is on floor 4. She doesn't commute. Her office is on floor 11. Her daughter's school? Floor 9. If she wanted, she could be born here, educated here, employed here, and never, not once, step outside into the open air of the city beyond. Now, is that the future of cities? Or is it a warning we've already stopped paying attention to? This is the Regent International Centre in Hangzhou, China, often described as the world's largest apartment building, and what happened inside it reveals something uncomfortable about the future of cities. By the end of this video, you'll understand who actually lives here, why a building this strange exists, and what it quietly reveals about a housing crisis that isn't just China's problem, it's increasingly every major city's problem. To understand why this structure exists, you first have to understand the city around it. Hangzhou, on the eastern coast of China, sits in the heart of the Yangtze River Delta, one of the most economically productive regions on the planet. It's home to Alibaba. It hosted the 2022 Asian Games, and over the past decade it has sustained double-digit population growth year on year. Its permanent population has reached 12.5 million people, up from roughly 6 million 2 decades earlier. That is not growth. That is urban expansion on a historic scale. And when a city grows that fast, every system strains: transit, infrastructure, schools, and above all, housing. Qianjiang Century City is Hangzhou's answer to that pressure. Built from scratch on reclaimed land beside the Qiantang River, it's a planned district of government towers, business headquarters, and the logistics and tech firms powering modern Chinese commerce. And right in the middle of it, plotted on a site that was marshland not 30 years ago. Regent International. The numbers alone are difficult to absorb. The building stretches between 36 and 39 floors. The S-shaped form means different wings rise to slightly different heights. It stands 206 metres, roughly 675 feet tall. Its internal floor area covers 260,000 square metres. It contains more than 5,000 individual apartments. Official figures suggest around 10,000 permanent residents, though estimates during its busiest years reached as high as 30,000. To put that in perspective, the population of this single building exceeds that of an estimated 90% of all incorporated towns in the United States. It is not a building. It is a city that decided to happen indoors. But it was never supposed to be. Regent International was designed for a completely different kind of life. In 2013, Alicia Liu, fresh from her role as a key designer for the interiors of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel in Singapore, one of the most photographed buildings on Earth, was commissioned to design a 6-star luxury hotel for Qianjiang Century City. The plan was flagship hospitality, an ornate lobby, rooftop amenities, world-class service, the kind of building that puts a new district on the map. Marina Bay Sands, for those unfamiliar, is the building with the ship on top overlooking Singapore Bay. It is, by any measure, an architectural icon, a building that became a city's logo. Then the economics shifted. Hangzhou's property market moved. The hospitality projections changed. The 6-star hotel was shelved, and the structure Alicia Liu had designed, with its grand lobby, its expansive commercial floors, its full amenity stack, was repurposed. The rooms became apartments. The hotel restaurants became food courts. The spa became a gym. The concierge desk became a building management office. What was meant to serve paying guests from around the world now serves tens of thousands of people who simply needed somewhere affordable to live. At night, hundreds of identical windows glow at different hours. Delivery drivers returning after midnight, live streamers speaking into ring lights, office workers reheating dinners at 2 a.m. Entire lives unfolding behind a facade originally designed for temporary guests. That lobby is still there. Marble floors, high ceilings, the faint ghost of luxury in a building that now belongs entirely to the working city. And here is what I find genuinely beautiful about that. The building was not diminished by this transformation. It was made real by it. Now, the S shape. Because this is not an aesthetic decision. It is an engineering argument. A rectangular tower of this scale in this location would face significant wind load challenges. The Qiantang River generates some of the strongest tidal bores in the world. The Qiantang bore, a seasonal wave that surges upriver, can reach heights of 9 meters. The surrounding wind patterns are punishing. A rectangular block of 260,000 square meters would create enormous lateral stress at its upper floors. The S-curve distributes those forces along the building's length. Instead of fighting the wind, the form deflects it. Each curve generates a pressure differential that reduces the net load on any single structural section. And there's a subtler benefit too. The curve means no internal corridor runs long enough to feel institutional, breaking the psychological effect of an endless tunnel. It is the difference between a home and a maze. The S-shape also maximizes exterior-facing units. In an equivalent rectangular floor plan, a significant proportion of apartments would face internal light wells or other sections of the building. The curve opens up the facade, giving more units access to direct natural light, which, in a building of this density, is not a comfort detail. It is a mental health consideration. However, some apartments here have no windows. Studios divided and subdivided by landlords seeking yield from the city's endless appetite for cheap accommodation. Those units rent for around 1,500 RMB, roughly $210 per month. Larger apartments with balconies command up to 4,000 RMB, about $550. In a district minutes from Hangzhou's central business district, where Alibaba's sprawling global headquarters continues to expand, $210 a month is not just affordable. It is, for thousands of people, the only way in. Most coverage of Regent International focuses on the architecture, but the architecture is not what stayed with me. The residents are called colloquially Hangpiao, a term in Mandarin that translates literally as those who have drifted to Hangzhou. Young people from Henan, Sichuan, Anhui, Guizhou, provinces far inland, provinces with fewer jobs and more mouths than opportunity. They arrive in Hangzhou with a qualification, or without one, looking for work in the tech companies, the e-commerce warehouses, the live streaming studios that have made this city one of the fastest growing economies in China. At its peak, during the COVID years, when China's live streaming economy exploded, Regent International became something extraordinary. A local government survey found that 25% of the building's floor space had been taken over by companies, and a significant proportion of those companies were live streaming operations. One estimate put the figure at roughly 30% of the total occupant population running some form of e-commerce or broadcast business directly from their units. Imagine that for a moment. The corridors of this building during the pandemic years when the world retreated indoors were alive with the sound of sales. Dozens of studios operating from subdivided apartments and commercial units, cameras pointed at products, hosts counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sell. A building that had been designed for luxury hospitality had become the physical infrastructure of China's digital economy. It was nicknamed, variously, the Live Streamer Tower, the magical building. But nothing lasts, and in early 2024, the Straits Times sent a reporter to Regent International. What she found was different. The live streaming boom had cooled. China's slowing economy had squeezed consumer spending. The companies had contracted. Some had failed. Young people who had arrived chasing digital gold were leaving. She met a 22-year-old named Liu Hua in the lobby, moving out just 9 months after she had arrived from Chengdu to pursue a career as a live streaming host. Her employer had gone bankrupt. She described the building as too oppressive, too depressing. She said she hadn't wanted to stay. And I've thought about Liu Hua a lot since I read that, because her story isn't unusual anymore. In cities across the world, ambition increasingly begins with excitement and ends in survival. The structure didn't fail her. It just showed her the cost of her own ambition. Her experience is just as true as the experience of the residents who love it. The convenience and the claustrophobia, the community and the isolation. The Regent doesn't collapse those contradictions. It contains them. When Regent International went viral on TikTok and YouTube in 2023 and 2024, the word used most often, by commenters, by headlines, by architecture writers, was dystopian. And I want to interrogate that word. because I think it reveals something about us more than it reveals something about the building. Dystopia describes a society organized against human flourishing, control, deprivation, systems designed to diminish. Is that Regent International? The residents there are not imprisoned. They chose to come. They pay their rent. They work, eat, sleep, raise families. Many describe their life in the building with something far more mundane than dystopia. Convenient, pragmatic, not perfect, but manageable, in a city that would otherwise be unaffordable. The critics call it dystopian because it makes us uncomfortable. But the thing that should make us uncomfortable is not the building. It's the conditions that made the building inevitable. The United Nations estimates that 2.8 billion people, roughly 40% of the entire global population, currently lack access to adequate housing, secure land, and basic services. In London, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in 2024 was over £2,000 per month. In Sao Paulo, 25 million Brazilians live in inadequate or overcrowded housing. In Mumbai, the informal settlements that press up against the base of luxury towers house millions of people for whom no legal, affordable, structurally sound alternative exists. Regent International is not a Chinese problem. It is the world's problem, given a floor plan and a postcode. I want to be precise here. I'm not making the argument that Regent International is good. I'm making the argument that dismissing it as dystopian lets us off the hook. Because the real question is, what would a better version of this building look like? The shortcomings are not secrets. First, almost no designed relationship with the city around it. The ground floor is inward-facing, serving residents, not the street. A building of this size could have been the most activated street level in Hangzhou. Instead, it turns its back on the public realm. Second, amenity access is stratified by cost. The residents who can afford only the cheapest units are effectively living in a different building. The architectural container is shared. The lived experience is not. Third, and this is the one that stays with me, there is almost no meaningful green space integrated at height. In Singapore, newer high-rise residential projects mandate sky gardens, planted terraces at mid-floor intervals, open to every resident regardless of what floor they sleep on. What if every 10th floor at Regent International had sacrificed its commercial units for exactly that? It would have cost the developer yield. It would have given the residents something money cannot easily replace. These were not impossible design choices. They were design choices that were not made. And yet, this is where I land. The existence of this building forces a question architects, planners, and policymakers cannot keep avoiding. As cities grow, as land becomes scarcer, as climate pressures make sprawl increasingly untenable. So what is the answer, if not density? Ancient Rome taught us that a building must be three things: strong, useful, and beautiful. The Regent International is undeniably strong. It is remarkably useful. But its beauty isn't found in its facade, it's found in its honesty. I think Regent International exists because modern cities have run out of easier answers. It is a structure that shouldn't have to exist, a built argument for a problem the world has chosen not to solve. But for the 30,000 people inside, it isn't a policy failure. It's home. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. If you were designing the future, what would you be willing to trade for a place to belong? How much sky, how much quiet would you give up for a sense of security? The answer to that question will define the cities of the next century. At Design Zip, we believe the built world isn't just a background, it's the stage for everything human. If you value looking past the concrete to the stories beneath, we'd be honoured to have you join us for the next journey. The world is being rebuilt every day, it's worth understanding how.